Hi, I welcome you all on a channel, An Evolving Mind of Compliance. In my endeavor to clarify certain things about compliance, the financial crime compliance, the sanction compliance program, as there are so much intricacies, complexities involved in them. And particularly what happens that when we are practically working in our organization, particularly in the financial institution, inadvertently we create a furrow for us as well as for the customers, and on and because of it we may be losing the business, we may be creating a society, an unbanked society, which is not the intention. Even FATF has also said banking is the right, unbanking is not a right. It is means you have to ensure that people are included. Financial inclusion has been a big agenda even in United Nations. So the FATF has also emphasized that banking is is like in fundamental right for each, although it's not been stated as in, but it is an underlying thing is that it is almost a fundamental right nowadays to have a banking relationship with some or the other financial institution or bank in the world. So today my focus would be around the sanction compliance, and under sanction compliance there are various agencies across the world those who apply the sanctions. So my focus today is on OFAC. It is an US body and US agency which applies the sanctions across the world. It could be an individual, it could be a company, it could be an uh, vessel, it could be something tangible which they apply the sanctions. Why do they do it? They feel it this particular vessel, country, company, individual is a threat to United States of America. Or further, these things could be threat to the community, to the entire international community, and therefore they apply the sanctions on these people, companies, vessels, etc., etc. But these sanctions by OFAC are applicable to the US person, not to all the person across the globe. I am not a US person. I am not supposed to follow the sanction compliance program of the US. It is not something which is coming from the United Nations that it is mandatorily to be followed by all the member states of the United Nations. It is from a particular country, US, and it is mandatorily to be followed by the US person. Although US person has got a very big definition, so I am not going to discuss over here the definition of a US person. However, we have to know that US sanction program is to be followed mandatorily by the US person. Now, why across the world this US compliance program, sanction compliance program of the US by OFAC is being observed so stringent? The US observe extraterritoriality, means even though you are not a US person, but you are supporting any of the sanctioned person by OFAC, then you have the chances of being sanctioned, means you may be cut off from the US financial system. So why the financial institutions and banks across the world are afraid of being cut off from the US financial system is because still 82% of the world's remittance, particularly for the trade, happens in US. USD still has that dominance. So if you have to maintain the US correspondent banking relationship for sending the money across the world in US dollar for the trade, then you have to follow the OFAC sanctions. Even, even I have used the word extraterritoriality. What does it mean? Even though I do not have any relationship with the US, I don't use US correspondent, I don't have any US nexus, still the US can imply the secondary sanctions. Particularly, these secondary sanctions have been enacted for Iran and Russia. So, but I am not going to detail into the secondary sanction because it will in itself is a big topic, but I am giving an overview. So sanction is nothing but an embargo, but a limit to a particular company, country, region, vessel that they cannot trade with US person, or when you as a bank or a financial institution in US or outside USA, if using this dealing with this sanction person should not have any US next. And as I've told you, extraterritoriality. So you have to keep it in mind, this extraterritoriality, that even though there is no US nexus, but the secondary sanction can come in place. Now, see, as I've in the start told you, the FATF intentions, all the bodies in the world have the attention that there shouldn't be any unbanked society. The society should be allowed to do the banking, and it's almost like a fundamental right. But let's say my primary objective today is to clarify when the person or when the entity or something would be considered within your database as sanction. For example, an OFAC has sanctioned a particular individual. If and it is called as OFAC 50% rule. Today I am clarifying you the OFAC 50% rule and how to apply it, and the contrary or a vice versa thing also I am going to explain it to you through this video. It is going to be very informative video. So let's say if an individual has been sanctioned by the OFAC across the world, in any part of the world, if that individual owns any of the entity or any of the vessel or asset, that asset company will not be directly considered sanctioned unless the individual which has been sanctioned owns the 50% or more than 50% shareholding in the company. If it is lesser than 50%, then that particular company vessel will not be considered as sanctioned. You can move such account to closed monitoring within your system so that their transactions could be carried out with more enhanced due diligence. But that would not be considered as. And secondly, the OFAC 50% rule does not talk about the ownership through control. Let's say, for example, if a person which is sanctioned is not a shareholder but a POA holder, power of attorney holder in the company. He simply has got a power of attorney, maybe in the board of directors, maybe as a managing director of a company, but he or she doesn't hold any stake in the form of shareholding in the company. Under those circumstances also, although through control process they own the company, but this company will still not be considered as sanctioned because OFAC 50% rule is very clear. It has to have a tangible shareholding in the company, which is 50% and more than 50%. Third thing which uh, talks about is aggregation. Let's say, for example, a particular individual is owning 26%, second individual is owning a 25%. So if we put together these two, it comes out to be 51%. And if these two individuals are sanctioned, put together, aggregation of their shareholding increases by 50%. this company will be considered as sanctioned because the aggregated shareholding of the two block person under OFAC has been equivalent to 50 or more than 50%. So this would be considered as sanctioned entity. Kindly note, fourth thing, if an individual is sanctioned owning a 26% and his wife owns 25%, and this individual is sanctioned, but his wife is not sanctioned. Again, you cannot club the percentage of a wife. Wife by default does not become a block person. You cannot block the company. The husband, wife, brother, sister, all these are, as per the law, two different individuals because they are related, maybe a blood relative, husband, wife. By default, they would not be considered as sanctioned, and therefore their share percentage must not be clubbed or aggregated with the sanctioned person share percentage. Like, for example, Osama bin Laden, he was a sanctioned person, but his son was still had some relationship in US because Osama bin Laden was a sanctioned, his son or his family members wasn't sanctioned. So this is a certain thing which I try to clarify. Although there are much more detail, but I have kept it very simple over here. Now the fifth thing comes. Let's say, for example, a company is being sanctioned. Instead of an individual, a company is sanctioned. A individual A has got a company XYZ. This company XYZ is sanctioned, but not individual A. Under these circumstances, by default, the customer individual A will not become sanctioned. This is the very much ambiguity in the people, those who interpret the OFAC 50% rule or some other rule, and they try to close or act upon the account which shouldn't be unnecessarily acted upon. See, this individual A has got a XYZ company, it is sanctioned, you should block this XYZ company. This individual A might have a stake in ABC, DEF companies, the two other companies. These two companies could be moved to the close monitoring, but you cannot block them. You cannot have an action upon these two companies because individual A owning three companies, out of those three companies, only the company XYZ has been blocked. Even though in the company ABC, DEF, he owns more than 50%, or maybe let's say 100% owned by the individual A, these three companies. But here XYZ is sanctioned, not an individual A. So this company ABC and DEF, these two companies, even though being owned by individual A, whose one company has been sanctioned by OFAC, these two companies will not be considered as sanctioned. They will rather be moved to close monitoring within the banking or financial institution system so that their transactions should be through enhanced due diligence. Therefore, as I told you earlier, that the banks are considering individual A also as a sanction, and they are acting on these two companies. And we are, means, as a bank or any financial institutions are losing the business unnecessarily. They need not to be closed, they need not to be acted upon, but to be moved into the closed monitoring within the system. They should have a more often periodic reviews. They should have transactions with more and more due diligence. So I hope with this you should have a clarity about 50% rule and vice versa when the individual A will not be considered as a sanction unless it has been sanctioned by the OFAC. So be very clear about the rule 50%, and when an individual is not sanctioned, only one of the companies sanctioned, what actions are to be performed within the financial institution and all those things, and what is extraterritoriality, why being not an US person, still we have to follow the US sanction program. I hope I have made all these points clear, and my endeavor is to educate the people educate the compliance fraternity, educate the compliance professional, and even the other people also, those who are into the business related to these sanctioned countries and all those things. So they shouldn't be afraid. They shouldn't have the feeling that they couldn't be allowed to do the banking and all those things. So my endeavor is this: in case you have any topic on which you want clarity or you want the people to know more about, kindly write in the comment box of this video, and I should be sharing and exchanging my views on that particular topic. And I request each and every one of you to please like, comment, share this video so that it could reach to the maximum people, and in in turn could also motivate me, and it would enhance the learning of the people. So with all this, I thank each and every one of you. Wish you all the very best.